Iron007 here, a warm welcome to everyone. Today, we're taking a look at the game which has monstrously hyped up everyone around the world. Of course, it's none other than Monster Hunter World. Enjoy! Monster Hunter is a massive series of video games available on various different consoles, ranging from PlayStation 2, 3DS up to Xbox One and PS4, with a PC release just around the corner. This January, Monster Hunter World came out, instantly selling millions of copies around the world and breaking the UK charts. Critics praised it, giving it an average Metascore of 91, with the user score not being too far off. I myself ended up buying it as I quite enjoyed playing the open beta together with friends. Did I regret my purchase? Let's find out. First of all, a small summary of what Monster Hunter actually is. As the title implies, you play as a self-made character in a world full of various different kinds of exotic looking creatures. Your job is to hunt them. That's all there is to know. The game is split in two parts, early game and late game, that I'd like to review separately, as the quality of Monster Hunter changes significantly between the two. Let's start with what comes first. Story. The story of Monster Hunter World is about the hunters and researchers exploring the wilderness of a new world and discovering as to why a gigantic molten turtle-like creature called Zora Magdaros is drawn to it. You, as the Monster Hunter, are responsible for helping the research team by hunting creatures that stand in the way and constructing camps that serve as outposts. The Monster Hunter series has never been received well for its story, characters, or anything that has to do with writing. Monster Hunter World doesn't change that, sadly. It gets pretty clear rather quickly that the story is just there so the game has an excuse to put you up against the various different monsters. Characters are incredibly dull. In the end, I neither liked or disliked anyone, nor could I form any kind of other opinion regarding their personality. They exist to give you text. That's it. Voice acting is passable, but not great. Most of the lines in the game are not fully voiced, but are MMORPG-like subtitles. I don't mind reading, but it wasn't hard to notice that the text was mostly fluff just to justify things instead of actually being interesting or worth your time. If I had to say something positive regarding the story, then it's that at least they tried. But honestly, I wish they would have just used the budget somewhere more useful. Everything outside the story is the main meat of Monster Hunter. You craft gear and consumables, set a target monster, go to the map, look for it and take it down. Followed up by carving its corpse and creating new sets of gear. It's a fairly simple concept which is very often found in MMORPGs. Set yourself a piece of gear as a goal and grind for it like there's no tomorrow. Whether you enjoy this kind of thing or not is up to you. I'm fairly thick-skinned in this case and didn't mind too much, besides at one point, where I ended up killing a difficult boss 15 times and still didn't receive the item I was looking for. Hunting tools are very varied in this game. There's an incredible selection of items which can be crafted using a very easy to understand but expansive list. Items not just being simple consumable potions, but also traps, tranquilizers, bait and more. Of course, there are also all kinds of weapons to choose from, every single one of them actually having an entirely different gameplay style. Personally, I enjoyed the hammer the most and stuck around with it up until the end. Hunting the monsters is a combination of tedious and fun. Tedious being the part where you have to track them around the map, and fun being the part in which you actually get to find them. The tracking system involves the search of footprints and marks. Collecting enough of them will make your glowing wisps show you the path to the monster. It's about as interesting as it sounds. Most of the time, my friends and I ended up running around in circles and just tapping O whenever the wisps detect anything. Best case scenario, you get tracks, and worst case, you get the wisps going for crafting material. Either way, you eventually become exhausted of the mechanic. Once the monster is found, you can choose to engage it however you wish. We ended up beating the game by just doing frontal assaults at all times. Hit it until it's dead, it was a popular line while playing. The lack of strategy required for the monsters was depressing, but it didn't take too much away from the enjoyment of beating them. Several of them actually did require minor changes of plans and analyzing of their attack patterns. Especially later bosses, which had the ability to burst you down in an instant if you weren't careful. However, complex strategies definitely weren't needed. The game still does give you the tools if you desire a more wicked approach. My favorite tool being the ability to lead other monsters on the map to the target and forcing them to fight each other. Oh, Barrett is here. They're having a turf war.
Yeah, they actually fight each other.
Yeah, because it's in Barrett's turf. Oh my god, here we go. Oh, this looks so cool. Oh, that's so freaking cool. The variety and designs of the enemies the game has to offer is fantastic. It ranges from oversized lizards to flaming chimeras. Every single one of the enemies has detailed abilities, weaknesses, resistances, weak spots and more, which can be entirely discovered in-game, adding a nice layer of depth. The main story doesn't force you to kill most of the existing monsters and allows you to do the rest of them optionally, in case you wish to receive their loot or just out of pure completionism. During the first half of the game, you will be led from one monster to the next, every single one being quite different from the previous one. Occasionally new maps get introduced, allowing you to explore different biomes. Those biomes tend to contain monsters that evolve differently and environmental hazards that aren't present on other maps. The maps are alright visually speaking, but don't expect to be playing any type of exploration game here. You're here to hunt monsters. Every monster can be tracked the same way, regardless on which map it is, which makes the tracking aspect of the game very repetitive. Generally speaking, I enjoyed the first half of the game. The main quest was exactly what I signed up for when I bought Monster Hunter. I ended up hunting a good variety of different types of monsters and enjoyed it. It was a blast. Let's talk about the second half of the game. But before I do that, I would like to tell you right away that I utterly despise it. When reaching the second half of the game, Monster Hunter World will tease you by saying that there is now an even greater challenge ahead. Turns out that what the game meant by that is that all the previous monsters have become stronger, which is to say higher damage and higher health. New sets of armors get unlocked, which are basically the original sets with slight variation in the model and color. While enemies become stronger, they just mostly change in color and learn 2 new moves at best. I honestly still didn't mind any of that, but what I did mind was what the main quest ended up doing. In part 1, you would be forced to hunt various different monsters, but in part 2, you end up spending several hours just hunting for footprints to fill up a footprint bar to continue the main storyline. This.
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Why? This is just a waste of time.
I don't mind tracking monsters like when they're in the zone, but this is fucking annoying.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the worst part is that you need to. It's not just like, oh, you need 1 or 2. No, you need like 50 of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
50 freaking footsteps and whatnots, and it's just a waste of time. You're running in circles trying to find them. You restart the zone just so you can reset them, so you can just same thing again. It's bad.
Yes, it is bad. Terrible design choices.
Yeah. It's slow, tedious, and incredibly infuriating. We still pulled through to reach the final bosses of the game, which actually are quite interesting to fight, and use entirely new sets of moves. Still, the second part of the game left me with a bad taste in my mouth, and I can't just ignore the hours wasted so the game's length could be artificially increased. From a technical perspective, the game looks pretty good on my PS4. I own a PS4 Pro, so it actually offered me improved resolution, frame rate, or graphics options. I chose frame rate, which allowed me to play the game at 60 frames per second. It would dip below 60 FPS if too much was going on the screen, but it worked without any issues most of the time. Based on a comment of one of my friends, it seems that the original PS4 version wasn't so lucky. Benchmarks show that it would very often even go below 30 frames per second while looking way worse than the PS4 Pro version visually speaking. The 2 things I would like to complain about from a technical aspect are the co-op integration and the loading times. The game was filled with loadings during map switches. It would take up to a minute just to start a quest. It gets quite frustrating when you realize the amount of time you have lost staring at a black screen. Monster Hunter World was designed with co-op in mind. The possibility of being able to play through the game from start to finish with friends was well marketed. While this is true, the marketing campaigns fail to mention that in order to join a co-op quest together, all players must have seen the cutscene of the selected mission. Meaning that if the mission contained a boss to defeat, you would have to first join the quest, play until the cutscene plays, then leave the quest, then make your co-op partner do the same, just to be able to play on the same quest together. This silly design decision could be potentially patched out, but right now is incredibly crippling to the co-op aspect of the game and deserves no praise. To summarize, the story is quite dull and boring, which includes the characters, voice acting, and writing. The gameplay is a mixed bag. While finding footprints isn't interesting at all, the fighting the monsters part is actually quite enjoyable, especially with friends. The things that surround the main gameplay, such as crafting, weapon selection, and collecting, are quite fun and fairly in-depth, very attractive for theme park MMORPG players. Graphically and performance-wise speaking, the game is very good on a PS4 Pro, but quite questionable on an original PS4. The loading times are too long and the co-op aspect needs patching ASAP. Do I recommend Monster Hunter World? Only to the ones that really know what they're signing up for. If you have never heard of the Monster Hunter series before, then it's probably the best Monster Hunter game to get into, but make sure to inform yourself about what Monster Hunter represents, because it doesn't change much in terms of core mechanics to make the series popular. This game is mostly about grinding and killing monsters. If you're looking for in-depth story or relatable characters or basically Witcher 3 2.0, then you won't find it here. Overall, Monster Hunter World is an above-average game that I personally enjoyed but would have difficulty recommending to everyone. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the review, please leave a like and subscribe, as well as follow me on Twitch and Twitter. If you wish to interact with the community, feel free to join the Discord. All links in the description down below. I wish everyone a good evening and good night.